Did you know that right now, while you're reading this, thousands of people in Mexico are performing bloody rituals that include human sacrifices, demonic pacts, and ceremonies that mix death with spirituality? Behind the colorful Mexican traditions, the Day of the Dead, mariachis, Catholic festivities, hides a spiritual dimension so dark that governments try to keep it hidden from the world. You're about to discover Aztec rituals that were never abolished, cartels making pacts with supernatural entities, and ancestral traditions that transform the search for the divine into a nightmare of pure horror. Prepare yourself for a journey that will forever change your perception of Mexican spirituality. The dark spiritual side of Mexico. Demons, blood rituals, and traditions that will make you shudder. Cheerful mariachis, delicious tacos, paradisiacal beaches, and the image of a vibrant country where colorful culture mixes with enchanting folklore traditions. When we think of Mexican spirituality, our mind is flooded with scenes of the romantic Day of the Dead, sincere Catholic devotion, and the promise of a land where indigenous ancestry coexists harmoniously with European Christianity. The Mexican cultural industry sold the world the image of a country where death is celebrated with flowers and music, where Catholic saints protect devoted faithful, and where pre-Columbian traditions transformed into harmless folklore for tourists. Everything very colorful, very exotic, very comforting for those seeking alternative spirituality. But there exists a spiritual Mexico that tourist guides don't show, that telenovelas hide, and that the Catholic Church insists on denying. A dimension where the sacred mixes with the macabre, where ancestral rituals still demand human blood, where pre-Hispanic demons roam modern cities, and where the search for the supernatural can lead to possession, madness, and death. From what city are you watching this video? Tell me in the comments where you're speaking from, because after this investigation into the spiritual darkness of Mexico, you'll understand that not every ancestral tradition is light and love. There exists a Mexico where cartels make pacts with demonic entities, where children are offered in sacrifice to guarantee harvests, where Santa Muerte demands blood tributes, and where indigenous shamans practice rituals that would make any modern person question the limits between spirituality and pure horror. Today, we'll take you on a journey through the darkest and most terrifying aspects of Mexican spirituality. We'll discover the Aztec demons that still haunt the country, the rituals that transformed sacred traditions into instruments of terror, and the practices that make the search for the divine a journey through the darkest corners of the human soul. Prepare to discover that behind the colorful skulls and Catholic prayers exists a spiritual universe where ancestral horror coexists with urban modernity. Number 1. Tezcatlipoca, the Lord of the Smoking Mirrors. While tourists admire Aztec art in museums, millions of Mexicans still fear and venerate Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, one of the darkest entities of the Mesoamerican pantheon that never stopped influencing the country's spiritual life. This god of night, war, and judgment continues to be invoked through rituals that mix pre-Columbian traditions with modern practices. Tezcatlipoca is considered the antithesis of Quetzalcoatl, representing chaos, destruction, and violent transformation. Unlike Christian demons, he is not simply evil. He is a primordial force that governs dark aspects of human existence. His modern devotees invoke him to obtain power over enemies, revenge against adversaries, and protection through fear. In Tlaxcala and Puebla, there exist clandestine chapels dedicated to Tezcatlipoca, where nocturnal rituals include animal blood offerings, obsidian mirrors, and prayers in ancient Nahuatl. Participants wear jaguar masks, paint their bodies with Aztec symbols, and enter trances that supposedly allow direct communication with the entity. Healers specialized in Tezcatlipoca works offer services to destroy enemies, cause specific diseases, and protect clients through pacts that demand personal sacrifices. These rituals include extreme fasting, self-mutilation, and offerings of personal objects that symbolize aspects of life that must be sacrificed to obtain favors from the entity. Syncretization with Christianity transformed Tezcatlipoca into a figure that manifests through specific Catholic saints, especially those associated with war and judgment. Devotees pray to Saint Michael the Archangel while mentally addressing Tezcatlipoca, creating spiritual hybrids that combine Catholic elements with pre-Hispanic invocations. Businessmen and politicians supposedly consult Tezcatlipoca specialists to obtain competitive advantages, destroy adversaries, and maintain power through methods that combine modern strategies with ancestral rituals. These services cost thousands of dollars and include ceremonies that last weeks. Number 2. Santa Muerte, the patron of drug trafficking. Santa Muerte is not just popular devotion. It's an expanding cult that combines Catholic, indigenous, and African elements in worship of personified death. Unlike traditional saints, she doesn't promise eternal life, but temporal power through acceptance of mortality as absolute reality. Tepito, a historic neighborhood of Mexico City, houses the main sanctuary of Santa Muerte, where thousands of devotees offer cigarettes, tequila, marijuana, and even cocaine to Flaca Bonita, Skinny Beauty. The main altar is decorated with real human skulls, photos of dead people, and offerings that include weapons, money, and personal objects from enemies. Drug cartels adopted Santa Muerte as patron, building chapels in controlled territories where rituals include executions of rivals as offerings to guarantee protection during operations. Sicarios, assassins, carry Santa Muerte medals, get tattoos of her image, and pray before committing homicides. Protection rituals involve offerings of human blood obtained through ritual cuts, sperm, tears, and other bodily fluids that symbolize aspects of life offered to death. Devotees promise to kill specific enemies, commit crimes in Santa Muerte's name, or sacrifice years of their own lives in exchange for favors. Give this video a like if you have the courage to know these spiritual traditions that challenge our understanding of the sacred and profane. Santa Muerte priestesses, mainly women from marginalized communities, offer services that include love bindings through necromancy, curses that supposedly cause death of specific people, and justice rituals that promise revenge against corrupt authorities. The commercialization of the cult created a parallel economy where statuettes, candles, incense, and other ritual objects are sold in specialized markets. Products include destruction candles to eliminate enemies, domination oils to control specific people, and cemetery powders made with grave dirt. Catholic exorcisms against Santa Muerte devotion are performed regularly, but frequently fail because devotees don't see their practice as demonic. They consider it a realistic way to deal with violence and death that permeate their daily lives. Number 3. Nagualism, shamans who become demons. Nagualism represents one of Mexico's darkest and most powerful spiritual traditions, where indigenous shamans develop transformation capabilities that connect them with more primitive and violent aspects of human nature. Unlike romantic shamanism sold to tourists, real Nagualism involves practices that transform practitioners into supernatural predators. Naguals are shamans who develop the ability to transform consciousness into specific animals, mainly jaguars, eagles, and serpents. This transformation is not metaphorical. Indigenous communities report sightings of shamans who physically assume animal forms during rituals that last entire nights. In Oaxaca and Chiapas, entire families specialize in Nagualism, passing knowledge through generations that include use of psychoactive plants, metamorphosis techniques, and rituals that demand animal sacrifices and, in extreme cases, human beings. Master plants like peyote, ayahuasca, and datura are used in doses that cause near-death experiences, allowing shamans to travel to dimensions where they can assume animal identities. These experiences frequently result in permanent psychological trauma, psychosis, and death by overdose. Pacts with animal entities require Naguals to sacrifice aspects of their humanity, developing predatory instincts that make them dangerous to the communities they serve. Many Naguals are simultaneously respected and feared, considered necessary, but potentially lethal. Initiation rituals include being buried alive, exposure to animal venoms, extreme fasting, and experiences that take initiates to the brink of madness. Only a small percentage survives the complete process, and many who survive never recover normal sanity. Secret societies of Naguals operate in various regions of Mexico, maintaining traditions that include ritual murders, territorial control through supernatural terror, and parallel justice systems that function through methods combining physical violence with psychological warfare. Number 4. Mexican Witchcraft, New World Sorcery. Mexican witchcraft combines indigenous, African, and European elements in a sorcery system that influences practical aspects of daily life through rituals that frequently involve violence, manipulation, and supernatural control over other people. Witchcraft markets like Sonora and Mexico City sell ingredients for rituals that include animal heads, dried blood, toxic plants, and objects that were supposedly charged with negative energy. Vendors offer consultation on how to use materials to cause diseases, death, and misfortune to specific people. Limpias are purification rituals that frequently function as diagnostics to identify witchcraft works that supposedly cause problems in people's lives. Healers rub eggs, live animals, and plants over clients' bodies, then read results to determine types of spells that must be broken. Love bindings force people to develop romantic obsessions through rituals that include mixing bodily fluids and food, using hair and nails to create dolls that represent targets, and performing sexual ceremonies that supposedly create irresistible energetic connections. Destruction works aim to cause diseases, accidents, financial losses, and death through rituals that include burning photographs, burying cursed objects in victims' properties, and creating death altars dedicated to specific people. Would you live in a country where witchcraft is accepted as daily reality? Leave in the comments what you think of these traditions that mix the sacred with the macabre. Specialized witches develop reputations based on specific types of work. Some are known for causing deaths, others for destroying marriages, and some for protecting clients against rival witchcraft through methods that include creating energetic shields and performing spiritual counterattacks. Human ingredients like menstrual blood, sperm, tears, saliva, and even parts of corpses are used in more powerful rituals. Clandestine markets sell these materials, and some healers maintain suppliers who collect specific substances for payment. Number 5. Modern sacrifices, living Aztec traditions. Despite Christianization, human sacrifices were never completely abolished in Mexico. Ancestral practices continue in modified forms that include agricultural rituals, fertility ceremonies, and offerings to pre-Hispanic entities that still demand human blood. Agricultural rituals in rural communities include child offerings to guarantee rains and prosperous harvests. Babies are loaned for ceremonies where they are exposed to natural elements until they die of hypothermia, then buried in fields as seeds that supposedly guarantee Earth's fertility. Teotihuacan and other archaeological sites are locations where Reconstructionist groups practice rituals that include animal sacrifices and, occasionally, people who voluntarily offer themselves to recreate Aztec ceremonies. These practices are justified as cultural preservation and ancestral spirituality. Drug cartels adopted aspects of Aztec sacrifices, executing rivals through methods that include heart extraction, ritual decapitation, and head offerings to entities that supposedly protect territories and criminal operations. Clandestine festivals recreate complete Aztec ceremonies, including use of psychoactive drugs, ritual music, and sacrifices that begin with animals, but can escalate to human offerings when participants enter altered states of consciousness that eliminate normal moral inhibitions. Missing children are occasionally found in circumstances suggesting ritual use, with bodies presenting wounds and mutilations consistent with ancient sacrificial practices. These deaths are frequently classified as common homicides to avoid investigations that could expose continuity of prohibited traditions. Priests specialized in Reconstructionist rituals offer services that include symbolic sacrifices that can escalate to real offerings depending on ceremony's spiritual intensity and participants' level of commitment. Number 6. Demonic possessions, pre-Hispanic entities. Possession by pre-Hispanic entities is a widely recognized phenomenon in Mexico, where spirits of Aztec warriors, Mayan priests, and other ancestral figures supposedly take living people to fulfill unrealized purposes or seek revenge against descendants of historical enemies. Coatlicue, the Aztec serpent goddess, possesses women during fertility rituals, causing behaviors that include speaking in ancestral languages, developing superhuman physical strength, and performing prophecies about births, deaths, and catastrophes that frequently come true. Aztec eagle warriors possess young men, especially those with indigenous ancestry, causing violent episodes where possessed people attack others with ferocity that goes beyond normal human capabilities. These episodes are treated by healers specialized in negotiating with warrior spirits. Mictlantecuhtli, Aztec god of death, manifests through people who develop obsessions with cemeteries, corpses, and necromantic rituals. Possessed people build altars dedicated to death, collect human bones, and frequently commit suicide as a form of reuniting with the entity. Catholic exorcisms frequently fail against possessions by pre-Hispanic entities because these entities don't recognize Christian authority. Liberation rituals require healers who combine Catholic elements with ancestral practices, including specific offerings and complex spiritual negotiations. Signs of possession include drastic personality changes, sudden knowledge of indigenous languages, increased physical capabilities, and behaviors that reflect pre-Columbian cultural practices that possessed people never studied or practiced. Hospitalization of possessed people is common, but conventional medical treatments rarely resolve cases because they don't address spiritual aspects. Many patients are released without improvement, forcing families to seek traditional healers. Number 7. Cursed cemeteries, portals to the underworld. Mexico possesses hundreds of cemeteries considered permanently cursed, where concentrations of violent death, necromantic rituals, and accumulated negative energy created portals to dimensions where evil spirits transit freely between worlds of the living and dead. Panteon de Belén in Guadalajara is known for apparitions of nuns who were buried alive, children who die of mysterious diseases after visits, and people who develop suicidal obsessions after walking among specific tombs. Night guards report sounds of lamentations, shadowy figures, and attacks by invisible entities. Cementerio del Tepeyac in Mexico City is built over an ancient Aztec temple dedicated to Mictlantecuhtli, creating overlap between Catholic traditions and pre-Hispanic death cults. Visitors report visions of Aztec priests performing sacrifices, spirits demanding offerings, and curses affecting people for generations. Panteon de la Paz in Puebla is a location where witches perform necromantic rituals, invoking spirits of the dead to execute revenge and destruction work. Cemetery earth is collected for use in witchcraft, and bodies are occasionally desecrated to obtain ingredients for rituals. Cartel cemeteries are areas where criminal organizations bury victims in rituals that include offerings to Santa Muerte and other entities that supposedly protect territories. These areas develop reputations as zones where the living shouldn't venture after nightfall. Nocturnal rituals in cemeteries include invocation of specific spirits, communication with the dead through mediums, and ceremonies that supposedly allow contact with dimensions where time doesn't exist linearly, enabling knowledge about future events. Children are especially vulnerable to negative influences from cursed cemeteries, developing behaviors that include talking with invisible friends who instruct about death, drawing macabre images, and expressing knowledge about dead people they never knew. Final reflection: when ancestral traditions become spiritual prisons. After exploring the darkest aspects of Mexican spirituality, one question remains: how did traditions that originally connected people with the sacred transform into systems that frequently imprison, traumatize, and destroy human lives? The answer may lie in the very nature of spiritual power when used to control instead of liberate. Many of these practices are not just historical survivals, but evolutions that adapted ancestral elements to serve modern needs for control, power, and manipulation. What impresses most is how these dark traditions coexist with Mexican modernity. People who work in air-conditioned offices during the day participate in bloody rituals at night. University students consult healers before exams. Businessmen make pacts with demonic entities to guarantee business success. Spiritual Mexico forces us to confront the reality that ancestral traditions are not automatically wise or benevolent. Some practices that survive for centuries are simply trauma systems that perpetuate through generations, masked as spirituality to justify violence and abuse. The line between devotion and fanaticism can be very thin, especially when spiritual traditions become more important than human well-being. When the sacred demands suffering, violence, and death as proof of faith, perhaps it's time to question whether these practices really connect with the divine or only feed the darkest aspects of human nature. Perhaps true spirituality lies not in blind preservation of traditions, but in the courage to evolve beyond practices that cause unnecessary suffering. The sacred should elevate humanity, not degrade it through rituals that transform people into instruments of their own torture. And you, after knowing this dark dimension of Mexican spirituality, can you still look at ancestral traditions with the same innocence? Can you appreciate pre-Hispanic art without thinking about the bloody rituals that inspire those creations? Can you participate in Day of the Dead celebrations without questioning what types of practices might be hidden behind tourist festivities? Perhaps true wisdom lies in developing discernment to separate genuinely transcendent elements from practices that simply perpetuate trauma. Spirituality should heal, not traumatize. It should unite, not divide. It should celebrate life, not glorify death and suffering. And now tell me, after knowing these macabre aspects that hide behind Mexico's colorful traditions, what impressed you most? Did you already imagine that these dark dimensions existed in Mexican spirituality? How do you think we can honor ancestral traditions without perpetuating aspects that cause suffering? Subscribe now, because tomorrow we'll reveal Brazil's dark secrets that the Brazilian government doesn't want you to know. You'll discover black magic rituals that dominate favelas, cults that sacrifice children in the Amazon, and African traditions that became urban nightmares. Don't miss this investigation that will change your perception of the carnival country forever. Leave in the comments your reflections on how our fascination with exotic spirituality can blind us to traumatic realities that hide behind practices we romanticize. And if this content made you question aspects of spirituality you considered purely benevolent, share it with other people who need to develop a more critical view of traditions that may seem fascinating but carry dark legacies. Thank you very much for having the courage to explore these disturbing realities. And until the next journey through the darkest and most revealing aspects of human spiritual experience,